What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. There's been a lot made about the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule being one of the hardest, if not the hardest, in the NFL. Pittsburgh has got a pretty tough schedule this season coming up, in spite of all of their good offseason, good draft. There's a lot of hype around this team, changing around the quarterback room, seeing what Russell Wilson or Justin Fields could bring to the table. A new offensive coordinator, a really good draft, a new offensive line, a new head linebacker in the ILB room. We've got a lot of good going for us, but the schedule also brings a lot of tough challenges around the corner. So, with that being said, I've got my computer just off screen here, and I'm going to be reading you guys game by game this schedule and giving you my prediction, my too early prediction, on whether or not the Steelers are going to win or lose that game. So I want to give you guys a full week-by-week Steeler prediction and final record prediction video here real quick. Off the top of my head, just looking at this schedule. So real quick, going game by game and giving my predictions for wins or losses for each week. Week 1 of the regular season, we're skipping over preseason here, no big deal. Regular season starts at the Atlanta Falcons. I'm giving Pittsburgh a win for this game. We don't know what they're going to look like with Kirk Cousins. They're going to be, in my opinion, much improved. But defensively, there's still a lot of holes. I think Pittsburgh can come in as that offense tries to gel for the first time, and Pittsburgh comes in and wins that game. So Pittsburgh gets the win at Atlanta. Then Pittsburgh goes at Denver. They go to Denver at the Mile High Stadium, which obviously is harder for some players to breathe. It is a change for players who are not used to playing there. But I think Pittsburgh wins. I think if Russell Wilson's in there, he gets the win over his old team. Denver is rebuilding. They don't have a whole lot of firepower. Judy's gone. Sutton may be gone soon. Russell Wilson is gone. I think Pittsburgh gets the win at Denver, goes on the road twice, and goes 2-0. Week 3 is our first home game against the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins that game as well. That one could go either way. Pretty solid offensive team in the last couple of years in spite of the turnovers, but they've lost a lot of guys too. Mike Williams is gone. Keenan Allen is gone. For as much as the league loves Justin Herbert, I think he's a little bit overrated. They're rebuilding big time there in Los Angeles as well. So I think Pittsburgh gets the win over the Chargers in their first home game and goes to 3-0. Then Pittsburgh goes at Indianapolis in Week 4 to Lucas Oil Stadium. I think Pittsburgh beats them as well. There's still some questions with their offense as far as Richardson being a young, unproven quarterback coming off an injury. Do they have enough weapons to help him? What's the health issues with Jonathan Taylor? So I think Pittsburgh beats the Colts as well. They usually do pretty well against the Colts. So Pittsburgh there goes to 4-0. So all of a sudden people are going, this schedule's not that hard. Pittsburgh could be 4-0. Then they go back home to Acrisure Stadium for a nighttime game, a Sunday night game, against the Dallas Cowboys. I think Pittsburgh loses that game. Dallas always has, every year, one of the best rosters on paper in the entire NFL. They don't always put it together. They don't always, they crumble in the late season. They don't get to the playoffs. They lose early playoff games. Dallas is not a clutch team, a playoff kind of team, but they are a very well put together roster every year as one of the perennial favorites in the NFC. And we always have a hard time against Dallas, always close games. I think Dallas wins this game. Then in Week 6, Pittsburgh has a 4:05 game at the Las Vegas Raiders. Pittsburgh always struggles going to the Raiders. Pittsburgh struggles playing the Raiders in general, but especially going to the Raiders. That kind of change, going to the West Coast, playing against the Raiders, just always presents a tough matchup no matter how bad the team is. They can have the worst roster in the league, and they always find a way to beat Pittsburgh. So I'm going to say Pittsburgh loses a second straight game here to the Raiders. I think Pittsburgh here loses 2 in a row and finds a way to lose to an inferior team. And again, that could also give us some wiggle room for another loss that I'm not accounting for. So I think Pittsburgh loses to the Raiders here and goes to 4-2. So 4 straight wins and then 2 straight losses. And then we go back home to play 2 straight games. We play at Acrisure Stadium, a Sunday night game against the New York Jets. And I think Pittsburgh wins that game. Again, there's a lot to be said for the Jets' last couple drafts. Aaron Rodgers obviously being the big question mark, but they've got a lot of firepower and a lot of opportunities to be a potential wildcard team in the AFC. I think Pittsburgh still wins that game just because of some of the unsure things and kind of how the front seven was going to perform for the Jets, and can they get pressure on Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. So I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins that game, and then also plays the following Monday night game against the New York Giants at Acrisure Stadium, and I think Pittsburgh wins that game. The Giants have one of the worst rosters in the league. Saquon Barkley's gone. Danny Dimes is horrible. I think Pittsburgh wins that game and avoids the trap. And then they go into their bye. So they have, what do they have here? 8 games before their bye, and I think Pittsburgh goes 6-2 in those 8 games. Now they could lose any of these 2, but I think Dallas and Las Vegas are the 2 we fall into. So 6-2 heading into the bye. Things look really good at that point. That first half of the season looks really good. Again, the games like the Chargers and Jets could go either way. We could find a way to win the Raiders game or find a way to win the Cowboys game. So there's a couple games that could go either way. But I have us 6-2 heading into our bye week and hopefully getting even more healthy. But here, the second half of the season is where it gets tough, right? So Pittsburgh, I think, comes out even stronger after their bye. They play at the Washington Commanders, who I think have a lot of potential issues as well on that team. I think Pittsburgh beats the Commanders, although that could be a trap game. Pittsburgh wins against the Commanders, and then we go into 6 of our final 8 games, I think, are against division opponents. We don't play any division opponents until 10 weeks into the season. It's crazy how that is scheduled. Makes it really tough because our division is tough, and we always play each other physical and beat each other up, even the Browns. We always play all those games tough. So I have us splitting the home and home series with all 3 teams. So Pittsburgh plays first at home against Baltimore at Acrisure Stadium, and they beat Baltimore at home. Pittsburgh always finds a way to win at least one game against each divisional opponent. I have that here. So Pittsburgh then comes out of their bye and goes 10-2. 10-2 in their first 12 games. Again, you're thinking like division winner, possible first seed at this point. This is where it starts to fall apart a bit for me. They go at Cleveland the next week. It is a Thursday night primetime game on Amazon Prime. I hate these streaming services. Let me just say that here. I think Cleveland beats Pittsburgh. Cleveland will be at home. They always give us a tough game no matter how bad their roster is. Their roster is always put together solid. That defense is super underrated. That line is working on improving. I think Cleveland gets the win at home here. And then the following week, Pittsburgh goes at Cincinnati and plays them. They're always an unknown because Joe Burrow's health kind of comes and goes with them. And I do think Cincinnati takes a step backward this year. Burrow coming off another injury. Mixon's gone. Tyler Boyd's gone. There's a good chance that T. Higgins gets traded. Cincinnati's going to take a step back this year and not be as good as they were before the Burrow injury. That being said, I'm going to give them this one at home. They're playing us. We're going to them. We're on the road there at home. I have them winning this first game in the series. Divisional splits just make sense to me. And again, if we do wind up sweeping the Bengals, which is quite possible, it gives us room for another loss in there somewhere. So I misspoke earlier, and Pittsburgh then loses these 2 games in a row and goes to 8-4 at this point. Pittsburgh came out 6-2 in the first 8. They win the first 2 after and then lose the next 2 divisional games on the road. So they go to 8-4 here. Then they play the Cleveland Browns at home. I'm going to give Pittsburgh that win. Again, those Browns games could go either way, but Pittsburgh usually beats them at least once. I'm going to give them the win at home against the Browns, which puts them now at 9-4. And then we go at Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia has one of the best rosters. They were a perennial NFC powerhouse top favorite every year until their collapse last year. They started off as one of the best teams, and Hurts had a collapse last year. But Philadelphia also snagged the 2 top corners in this draft and had probably the second best draft in the entire NFL this year behind the Steelers. So Philadelphia just gets better and better. I give them the win here because they're at home and they're, I think, a better overall roster and probably a better overall team. I'm going to give Philadelphia this win here, which puts Pittsburgh at 9-5. And then Pittsburgh goes at Baltimore. They go on the road to Baltimore, and I think Baltimore gets the win in that game as well. That puts Pittsburgh at 9-6, and now you're getting into dangerous territory of like wild card, past seasons where you kind of finish just over 500. Pittsburgh goes to 9-6 there, and then it gets even tougher because one of their few non-divisional games after having played Philadelphia is now at home against Kansas City. So Kansas City on Christmas Day, what a tough one that is. Kansas City, probably, again, Super Bowl champions. Every year they're in the Final Four. Patrick Mahomes obviously can take subpar offensive talent and make them better. KC had a decent draft as well, added a bunch of speedsters in the offseason. So I think KC beats us here in a 1 o'clock game at home on Netflix, which is even more stupid because now Netflix gets a piece of the pie here for the NFL as well. So Pittsburgh now goes to 9-7 after 3 straight losses at Philadelphia, at Baltimore, and home against Kansas City, and then closes out the season potentially looking for either a division title or being out of the playoffs as we sit there at 9-7 at this point, coming into the final game with 3 straight losses. Pittsburgh plays at home against the Bengals, and I think Pittsburgh beats the Bengals. Again, we're at home. We usually win the home games. We do pretty well against the division, and the Bengals are, we're banged up big time this time last year. Again, Joe Burrow's been getting hurt. This line still needs help. They've lost some weapons. I think Pittsburgh wins the home game against the Bengals. And again, I've got them splitting all the divisional games, so those can kind of go either way. But Pittsburgh wins the final game of the season, in my opinion, and gets themselves to 10-7, which is the same record they had last year. So though the roster is vastly improved and given us reason to believe we could be in the 11-12 wins column, which we could be here, but based on this tough schedule, and some of the tough teams we play, having 6 of our last 8 games be in the division, and those 2 non-divisional games being at Philadelphia and home against KC, that end of the season's looking rough for us. So Pittsburgh gets off to a fast, strong start, finishes kind of weak, and then wins the last game to get their 10 wins. Finish again over 500, keeping the Tomlin streak alive, getting, in my opinion, to the playoffs. I think Pittsburgh definitely gets to the playoffs, and I think they could be in contention for a divisional title, considering 10 wins is not a bad divisional mark, and we're getting several divisional wins. Depending how those other divisional games go, the ones on the road, depending how those go, Pittsburgh could be in line for an 11-win season, which could be up to the possibility of winning the division. But again, I think even though Cincinnati falls back a little bit, they're still going to be a decent team. I think Cleveland's always got a chance because their roster's decent if they figured out their quarterback situation. And Baltimore, every year, drafts well, brings in good guys, and is in contention as long as Lamar Jackson can stay healthy and, focus on not getting hit when he's running. So I think overall, Pittsburgh at 10-7, that's my prediction for the year. I'm usually correct within a game or two. I think I might have had 11 wins last year and we got 10, so I was 1 short. I think the year prior I was 1 short as well. So I'm kind of within a 1-game range every time that I do this. So you guys tell me in the comments down below, what do you think of my prediction and why? And give me your prediction video as well. What do you think in terms of record? Give me your thoughts on my record. What is your record? And which games on my list would you switch? Which wins do you think are losses? Which losses that I had do you think are wins? Tell me in the comments below, and please like, share, and subscribe. And I'm looking forward to bringing you guys positional breakdown videos pretty soon. Now that our off season is pretty much done as far as player acquisitions, hopefully not totally done, and our draft is done as well, I want to bring you guys did the Steelers upgrade these position videos and break down the spots we need help in still and how we fixed other places. So come back for more Steelers coverage, and I will see you guys soon.